Boom! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on this magnificent Monday for what is going to be nothing short of another jam-packed daily market update. And you would have all have noticed, likely through Coinbase notifications and various other things, that your portfolio is selling off and the cryptocurrency market is having a bit of a pullback. We're going to start the video off there, addressing the current price action that we're seeing. And I think this has everything to do with last week's data and the ramifications or the effects that that's had on interest rate pricing. In fact, the Bank of America are even coming out and saying the Fed aren't going to cut interest rates. This ultimately has had a bearing on the yield markets, which has had a bearing on the dollar. Right now, you notice the pound's getting smashed. I think the South Korean one's a bigger trade, but that's in real trouble. The Oz is also getting smashed. The dollar is a real wrecking ball. And there's a lot of people talking about, actually, are we on the same trajectory in regards to Trump's last presidency? In fact, Trump was actually speaking down dollar strength in his last presidency because he said it's not good for business, et cetera, et cetera. Are we going to see a similar thing in that dollar coming off once he takes office? You know, he spoke about lowering interest rates and things like this. There's a lot of, as an overarching statement here, uncertainty, certainly in regards to central banks and their monetary policy, the debt markets, yields and currency and the resolve of that. And I think that's sort of leaning on everything because the risk factor of something going wrong has gone up. And of course, markets are an ever-adjusting sort of space ecosystem. So we will talk about that. We're going to start things off on Bitcoin's price action. You know, in the bigger term time frame, you guys know my opinion. I don't think you should try and trade the crypto space. I think you should be long and strong a bull market, which is what we're in. It's been a trying one. I might do a video later on today where I compare bull markets just to sort of normalize the current frustration that we're seeing, I guess. But we are going to start things off on price. We're going to talk about exchanges. And we're going to talk about the amount of Bitcoin on CEXs, centralized exchanges. And actually, this continues to get drained despite the negative price action. It gives that kind of supply and demand feature. There's a lot of cash on the sidelines I want to talk to you guys about. Then we've got coin shares, digital asset flows, big outflows actually on certain assets, mainly Ethereum. But what we can see is altcoins are starting to shine through, and Binance actually did a report on that just the other day. Then we've got huge news. The Trump administration plans to appoint around 24 CEOs and founders of crypto advisory councils to guide digital asset policy. We're going to talk a little bit about Cynthia Lummis, who is ultimately set to lead the first ever Senate crypto subcommittee. So there's a hell of a lot, and we want to remind people of this. There's a hell of a lot of positivity when it comes to the cryptocurrency space and real fundamental reasoning for this space to do well. What we're experiencing right now is just what's inherent to this space, and that's volatility. We're still dancing to that macro tune, and it's important we pay attention to it. And with the uncertainty that's been cast over it and the changing that's going on, the markets are just adjusting. You know, ultimately that dollar really is a wrecking ball, and I would like to see that come down. Are we going to see a sort of 2017-16 repeat? We'll see. Obviously, we're referring to Trump's presidency back then and what happened with the dollar. He actually brought the dollar down, which is something he may look to do once again. But there's also, when we look at other countries like the UK guys, I'm besides myself in regards to actually being a UK citizen at this point. Somebody that's born and bred, has got, you know, some form of the UK, English, Scottish, Welsh, and even Irish. Obviously, Northern Ireland is a part of the UK. In me, you know, it's crazy what's going on. But let's not digress. Let's just start things off. And it calms us down, putting things on a big time frame weekly and looking at it logarithmically. Okay? This is still very clearly a broad uptrend. And actually, we've got patterns leading us to believe that continuation is on the cards. And whichever way you look at this space, whether it's through the lens of the total market caps, which are pulling back, we'll look at total 2 at all-time highs. It's very common that this happens. You know, you'll run into all-time highs and you'll pull back just like Bitcoin did, but that will set up for continuation. So we're at a kind of resistance level for the space as a whole, looking at it through the lens of total. But ultimately, the bigger picture is a very bullish one in regards to where this space is potentially going. And we've shown you lots of examples of charts that did exactly this and went on higher. And I think you're probably looking, certainly for the total 2 to get to 6 trillion, the total cryptocurrency market cap to get to sort of 10 plus. I still think that's on the cards. We've just got to get through this short-term chop and volatility. On the shorter time frames, one thing that we have looked at is this inverse head and shoulders. And we said, just be careful. Just because, and we've now got to take this a lot more seriously now that it's triggered. This is going to run you back to that 69k range. There's also a CME gap there. So this has always been on the cards. And we'll know whether it plays out or not. But there's a danger of being short or out of a bull market. Certainly I've seen a lot of people chop and change just recently and basically lose percentages of their portfolio each time. This is the sort of negative scenario, is that ultimately have that run down to 69k. Again, a lot of things going on monetary policy wise. Also, of course, you've got the changing over of presidents, you know, and there's going to be some bitter people around that entire situation that you've got to sort of think of or think about. I do often wonder as well, with them proposing buying Bitcoin, etc., are they trying to lower the price? There was news actually that the DOJ cleared the US government to sell some of the seized Silk Road funds, and that they were likely to proceed with that. There's a lot going on, but really it's all noise in what is clearly an uptrend for the cryptocurrency space. And this is a short-term pattern that may play out, it may not. But even if it does, you know, let's say we do get that run down, back down to sort of 69k, it really doesn't, or 79k, sorry, 69k would actually be devastating, certainly for the alt sector. It really doesn't, it sort of change the trend that we're in. It's just a scenario. What are you going to do with that? You're going to sell and wait to buy back when Bitcoin hits 69k? What happens if it doesn't do that and it rips higher here and you've just sold at this current position? So my sort of, it's not advice, but something I always say is just be long and strong a bull, be short and out of a bear, and know when market's changing. And I don't think we're at that point yet. I think we're still on the clear upside. We've got lots of technical reasons to suspect continuation of this. This is just a pullback. There is potentially a head and shoulders there that we need to pay attention to. Despite all of this, this was an interesting tweet. Global crypto hedge funds are apparently buying the Bitcoin dip. Talking about the current one. 1 million beta of global hedge funds performance to BTC has increased from its recent cycle low, signaling increased market exposure to Bitcoin and other crypto assets. Now, if we look at what's happening on exchanges, you can see this aggregates all the Bitcoin across exchanges in the kind of blue line. And then in the normal one, of course, the sort of black line is crypto's price. And you can actually see, despite the negative sentiment, crypto is being bought and taken off exchanges. And actually, this is continued to be the trend really since this bull market. You know, you can see a real stepping in here. And then, you know, as we sort of lulled, and now we're aggressively taking Bitcoin off exchanges, meaning people are still buying. There's a hell of a lot of cash on the sidelines. I probably won't discuss that in this video through money market funds. And actually, again, with interest rates being lowered, and really that's what the sort of macro uncertainty about is, that are we going to get that now? That's changed drastically. On Wednesday, we found they went from 5 to 3 cuts. Now, you know, and we've got inflationary data on Wednesday, which I think is actually, certainly the forecasts are it's going to come out hotter. I'd like for it not to, in the form of CPI. There's going to be year on years, things like this. So there's a hell of a lot going on. Crypto really paper bag in the wind. We're hoping the resolution, or certainly I'm hoping and believe, based on how technically things are signaled, that the resolution is going to be in the form of good economy, Trump's policies come in, and we sort of get this ball rocking and rolling again. I really want to see that dollar coming down, because that dollar strength isn't good for any markets, not just crypto selling off its markets more broadly. Let's dive into, we like to do this pretty much every single Monday, when CoinShares release their digital asset fund flows weekly report. So you can see macro and monetary policies reassert themselves with large outflows late last week. Obviously on the back end, he's referring to Friday there of economic data. And you can see we still had inflows, but it was marginal. Digital asset investment products recorded modest inflows of 48 million last week, although this marked large outflows later in the week due to stronger than expected macro data. So good data is actually kind of bad in the sense that it's guiding monetary policy. Ethereum suffered the most last week with 258 million in outflows. I don't know whether that's still the grayscale conversion going on there or what. We believe it attributed to the broader tech sell-off rather than any specific issue with the asset. XRP saw inflows of 41 million, suggesting heightening optimism around the 5th of January's SEC appeal deadline. So this is huge for XRP. Surprisingly, altcoins, despite poor performance, saw inflows, most notably being Aave, Stellar and Polkadot with inflows. You know, so it's a mixed bag. Binance did do a report where they said actually attention shifting from Bitcoin to altcoins. So I do believe Bitcoin dominance is likely going to roll. Actually, Bitcoin often nowadays is selling off more than some of the alt sector. Not a lot. In fact, not really at all today. The alt sector getting really hit very, very hard. But ultimately, you know, we think this is ultimately going to lead to broader continuation. We did an interesting video looking at an individual from the German stock exchange talking about altcoins. This initial pump that we've had being the kind of initiator of something broader to come, and we're just consolidating. We're very much of that mindset. So in regards to we still had inflows, but there was a lot of outflows. I think Ethereum's dead in the water. Ethereum's getting knocked off that second position this cycle. I believe that. Let's talk a little bit about what Trump's planning on doing. The Trump administration plans to appoint around 24 CEOs and founders to a crypto advisory council to guide digital asset policy and create strategic Bitcoin reserves in collaboration with the SEC, CFTC, and Treasury. Now, this is big, and you can only but imagine what crypto founders are going to be a part of that. You're probably going to see the likes of Brian Armstrong, Brad Garlinghouse, maybe Charles Hoskinson, Lehman. You know, you're going to see a lot of the cryptos that we talk about here actually ending up on this council. And actually, once they're on this council, they're going to look to implement DLT in regards to government, in regards to, finance, multiple sectors. So this is extremely bullish news. So despite the current price action, fundamentally, we've never been in such a bullish position as a space. But that's how markets go. Talking about the SEC, I enjoyed meeting with Paul Atkins, the SEC chair nominee. We discussed digital asset legislation and reforming the rulemaking process. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to putting the SEC on the Atkins diet. Senator Cynthia Lummis, she's also the individual that's drafted the Bitcoin Reserve Bill. Cynthia Lummis tapped to lead first ever Senate crypto subcommittee. Such a subcommittee already exists in the larger House of Representatives, which is undergoing a leadership change. So Cynthia, of course, is the individual that is essentially tasked with, or has tasked herself with, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. So there's a hell of a lot going on the big picture. We should probably do a specific video on all of that, quieting down a lot of the noise. This is a bull, guys. Fundamentally, we've got this amazing year ahead of us. Technically, we've got lots of reason to expect continuation. Try not to get shaken out and try not to do anything too stupid, like try and short the market. If you're wrong on that, you're in trouble big time. Certainly if you're leveraged short, your bull runs over. If you get out short now, or you get out the markets and it rips, okay, you're buying back 20% less crypto than you had. If you get it right, happy days, but you only need to get that wrong once for it to be very, very costly. Generally, I think the overarching picture is a good one, even technically, although perhaps not on the shorter time frames. It's interesting that totals are in and around resistance, all-time high resistance. This is what you would expect. Fundamentally such a sound story. I just can't wait for Trump to take office on the 20th and for them to get the ball rocking and rolling. And what he's going to do with the dollar, I think, is certainly going to be interesting. And of course, that's going to come on the back end of monetary policy and how he's going to guide that. That's it from me, guys. Happy Monday. Hang in there, troops. I know it's disheartening when the price action is like this. We get lots of messages all the time. It's very bipolar, the crypto space. When the price is going up, we're loved and the apple of people's eyes. And when price is going down, we're the kind of punch bag for the emotional roller coaster that they're on, which is fine. That's what we're here for. Guys, I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching. Have a magic Monday, and I'll see you soon.